Well, the task has been telling the truth about sex. The sexual revolution was much bigger than gay lib, and it was much more about achieving psychological health and personal wholeness as it was about having sex. GLBT people were generally perceived as warriors at the barricades, and telling the truth was one of the ways we fought. This is Frank Kameny, who invented the term gay is good. I think this is Jack Nichols. I'm not sure, but Jack Nichols, I recognize those names. Authenticity was the key value. Being honest about sex and being able to use words about sex is a hallmark of liberation, and it transforms how sex is experienced. This is Jim Forat. Do any of you know Jim Forat? He was one of the early founders. He's a friend of mine. Here's another kind of look to it all. The drag queens. There's this great battle about the Stonewall and whether there were really drag queens there. And now the culture, the history has been rewritten that they were actually all black trans activists who were in Stonewall, which probably isn't true, but everybody gets, in the same way that the Christians get to project back into Jesus that he loved my people especially. Everybody gets to project themselves back into Stonewall and say, oh, it was my people who led the revolution. Well, it took courage to be gay back in those days. So part of the hero journey is the road of trials. This is a much more complicated labyrinth, and it isn't so clear that once you got into that where you were going to go. Religion, mythology, spirituality all deal with suffering and misfortune. The hero finds the situation progressively increases in severity. Matters become darker and more urgent, until finally he or she resolves the crisis through their heroic act. Resolving the crisis may mean enduring ordeal, being tested, even allowing oneself to be a victim, but now with transformed vision. For the individual, the road of trials may be persecution or humiliation, losing a job, losing a lover, having to face personal misfortune and bad luck, maybe accident or disease. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. C.S. Lewis. I won't get off on C.S. Lewis, but here's a homosexual who has been revered as the writer for all these Christian, and we don't really ever know anything about his sex life, but he was a wonderful writer, and he has these wonderful ideas. For the gay community as a whole, this road of trials has certainly meant AIDS and its layers and the grieving over lost friends and lovers. By participating and demanding and working for change, the terror of those early days is being resolved. The road of trials, and I'm making an awful pun here, might also be thought of as the road of hearings and court cases, the road of trials. It was political zaps and candidates forums and community organizing that we have done in order to require change to happen. And it's been amazing that it has happened. So the next stage in the Campbell's thing was reconciliation, apotheosis, and sacred marriage. Successful passage through the road of trials brings reward. In myths, the hero often gets the damsel he has been sent to save, or is rewarded by the king with the hand of his daughter in marriage. But the hero may also die in the process and be taken into heaven and made a god. Or less dramatically, he may simply come home and find himself welcomed by his parents who rejected him. It is telling that in the actual history of gay lib, the major sign of success has been same-sex marriage. There are so many factors that have entered into the amazing changes in the last 10 years. There's no one thing, though perhaps everybody coming out and making themselves visible is what changed public perception of homosexuality. AIDS forced that visibility, with movie hero Rock Hudson as the archetypal example. And AIDS elicited compassion and respect. For many of the public who didn't really understand what homosexuality was at all, the fact that people stayed gay, even in the face of AIDS, was evident
that it wasn't just a choice those people made just so they could have more sex. AIDS and activism of caregiving it produced made homosexuals into three-dimensional real people. The stage of apotheosis, becoming God, is the hero's discovery that he or she is God, or in reverse, that God is he or she. Certainly one of the boons that gay culture has granted us is the discovery of the erotic God. Do you all know of Hunter Flournoy? He's one of the regulars at the GSV, and he's now running Spirit Journeys, this kind of travel agency that organizes gay travel to places like Machu Picchu and Cambodia. What's the Angkor Wat. Hunter Flournoy has a whole teaching, a retreat series called The Erotic Body of Christ. He says the erotic body of Christ is a visceral experience of God through our bodies, individually and collectively, modeled by Jesus. That's an interesting way of understanding Jesus. Lived by the erotic Christian mystics throughout the ages and felt directly in our own experience. The body electric and the various spin-offs in modern-day gay culture teach how to transform the experience of sexual arousal into something much more mystical. The boon is the revelation that sexuality and spirituality are not opposed. Indeed, they belong together, even enhancing one another. Gay consciousness, attraction to sames, is a clue to oneness and harmony. Non-duality, non-binary thinking, seeing beyond polarities, seeing shades of gray instead of black and white, being compassionate, not law enforcing. These can be hallmarks of the consciousness created by same-sex attraction. This is, I propose, the so-called gay sensibility in literature and art. Such non-dual awareness transcends the distinctions between right and wrong, good and bad, desirable and repulsive, self and other, God and the world. Non-dual means not eating the apple, so not being thrown out of the Garden of Eden. You know, the whole thing in the Garden of Eden is discovering the knowledge of good and evil, discovering that some things are good and some things are bad, that polarity. Well, we ended up on the side of the things that they said were bad, which we then discovered were good. There's a way in which you can see being gay as, and this is just a myth, you know, but you can see as a way that we didn't eat the apple. I've got an article on my website, and in the back of my book, The Secret Matter, the sci-fi novel, hypothesizing the story of Adam and Steve, that there really was a Steve in the Garden of Eden. And they didn't get thrown out because they decided that God was right. Don't eat that thing. I know where that's been. I don't want to mind now. This is a popular idea in new religious consciousness. Maybe it's the future of religion. If you look up non-dual now, you see this is what all these websites are about, understanding the non-dual reality, and that's what spirituality, Buddhist spirituality, is about. Well, we've been there, and we are perhaps guides to that. God and the world, as separate and distinct, relate as complementary opposites. Beautiful together, like male and female, but different. God is an other. God is out there. God and the world as non-dual relate as sames to sames. God experiences the world as us experiencing the world. God is in our bodies. Isn't this a beautiful image of the eternity, infinity, maybe Mobius strip? I've got a thing in one of my books about the Mobius strip as a gay symbol. This was an ad for KY Jelly. My suggestion for the spirituality, as you are reaching the point of ejaculatory inevitability, think, here comes God. And as you're coming, think, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free. If everybody in the world put out good, positive intentions during sex, what a different world we would be in.